Greetings, welcome to my shop. Today we're going to be working on a Stewart Warner model 9160. I actually have one of these already and it was a fairly easy restore. This one will be a little trickier. Some paint missing, there's a crack down the middle here and a nice chunk out of the side. So let's first take it apart and see if there's anything else that's wrong with it. I don't even know if there are tubes in it yet, but we'll start to take it apart. It's actually, Stewart Warner is a good radio brand, good quality back in the day. I don't even know if they're still in business anymore, I doubt it. But the name seems fairly common. Could have been purchased, name could have been purchased by another company selling cheaper quality items. So the hope is if all the tubes are there, nothing looks wrong on the inside. I'll start to first repair the case and we'll see how it goes from there. I actually don't need to take that off. I should be taking these off first. There we go. And then I should be taking in the corners here. These are the ones that are going to get the case out. I was removing the antenna, which I didn't really have to. And I'll do the other side now. Okay, and here we are. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. It has the 5 tubes. The speaker looks good, a little dust in there. This is turning fine. On-off switch is a little sticky, but we can take care of that. Let's see what's at the bottom. Oh wow, almost nothing to restore here. Well, you can see the plug's broken, so I'm definitely going to replace that. And usually it's the first thing we should do anyway. Yeah, you can see it's already fraying here. So this goes out in the garbage. I saved these, I don't know for what reason, maybe just to keep account of the radios I've restored. So it looks like it has 1, 2, 3 wax capacitors, and this one's kind of blowing out already, and 1 electrolytic capacitor. So it should be a fairly easy fix. It has my favorite, and I'm being sarcastic, IF transformers, the one that are well known to get silver mica disease. I just had to replace 2 in the radio I just finished, so we'll see if this is fine. Very dusty, but I'm not going to worry about that now. Let me put this back on. This actually helps keep it on. Oh, I see, there's screws in here, a little different than normal. So I can just hold these and tighten it a bit here. That's good. And that's good. All right. Put it in my parts container. And now let's take a look at this. There's another chip here, another piece out that would take care of. So we have those two, and this crack here. Cracks aren't really not a problem, but this one comes almost all the way to the front. What I'll do is I'll take a Dremel to kind of drill a little V-shape along the crack, and then fill it in with body putty. And here I have a method for creating nice and smooth replacements with that same putty. Alright, so let me get that set up and I'll be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. So what I have is metal tape or aluminum tape, and what this does, you can get a nice smooth finish once you put it on the radio and then put the putty on top of it, and it comes out really smooth. I've had great success. So 2 parts I'm going to do. What you want also is something very smooth. This is just plastic, flexible, and you can put the tape on here, and then what I'll do is I'll put it like this, keeping it nice and tight. I'll use packing tape for that, and then I can apply the putty. So let me first get this onto the metal tape from here. The trick here is you want to get as smooth as possible. You don't want to have any bubbles, lines, because anything that's showing here will also show in the body paste that you're using to smooth it out. Okay. Got a little overlap here, just want to cut that off. Alright. So now I want to get perfectly even side here. You can see it bent a little here. So I'm going to try and smooth it out a little more again. It seems like it wants to fold up here, but I have the coverage I need right to the point of the crack, so it should be fine. What I'm going to do is take some packing tape, because it's unforgiving, and I can put this here right to the end. Make sure I get it nice and even. And if you look on the inside, you can see just the metal is showing. And looking at where, I don't see any bends or folds in there. So that should be fine. I think I'm going to put a little more tape on it to make sure this stays down. And one more piece over here. Underneath it. That looks good. I'm going to trim a little tape off because I don't want the body putty sticking to it. Good. Okay, that looks good. Now we'll do this other small one here. This is, come on. There we go. And again, nice and smooth. You don't want anything out. Just want to cut off the excess. And then we'll smooth it out. Okay, this one can fit here perfectly. That should be fairly easy. Guess you'd like to see what I'm doing here. Put it right up against it. Now it looks good. I'll go another piece to hold it down because I see a little air bubble. Let's see if that did it. I'll put one more different direction. I've seen some people do this. Instead of tape, they use clamps and things like that. I just find, for me, this method works better. There we go. Okay, that should be good. And as far as the crack, that's the second step I'm going to do. I'm not going to do that right now. But now we'll mix all the body paste up. I keep calling it body paste. It's JB Weld is the brand I use. And have different types for quick sets, slow sets, for plastics, for metals. This is a plastic radio. It's not a Bakelite radio. So I put a C here. I wonder if that stood for crack, like we couldn't see it. I have no idea. Let me get the paste I need and I'll be right back. I am back. I have my JB Weld. You can get this, I got this at Home Depot. You can get it at any hardware, home goods stores, even auto parts stores. Basically you just put a little of each color. One is a hardener and one is called steel. And it's forgiving from what I've found. You don't have to be perfect when you're making a mix, but close enough is right. I should be wearing gloves. Mistake number one. Squeeze it out. Okay, that looks to be a decent mixture. Now you mix it together, and it white, those of you who know your colors, black and white make gray. So you just mix it till you get a good coverage of all gray, no streaks of black or white in it. I'm going to go around the edges too, make sure I get it. And it's forgiving. It's not like you have to have this done in 30 seconds like super glue. You really have time to make it set. I'm going to do this one first, this little one here. going to try and do it without getting in the way of the camera, which may be a challenge, but we'll see. Trying to fill in so it's as smooth as possible. You can also sand this out, which is much easier on the inside of the cabinet than the outside, but I just want to make sure I have good coverage. You can see that's moving a little, hoping I didn't mess it up. Put a little more on there. Okay, now we'll do this side here. This one has a little more space to fill. And this goes right against where you screw things in, so you kind of have to sneak it in here. Fill some more in. And again, you don't have to be that careful on the inside, but you do want to make sure you have it at least level with the rest of the cabinet. This one's a little messy today. Smooth it out there. Smooth it out here. Smooth it out there. I have a little on the outside, which I do not want, so scrape that off. That looks good. Alright, I'm going to go outside and throw this out, wash my hands, and while we're waiting for it to dry, maybe I'll start on the actual electrolytics and capacitors to see if trigger is actually going to work. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. First thing I did was put a cover over the speaker because I am clumsy and I've put my fingers through many a speaker. And usually after you do that once, you learn your lesson. I'm a little slow in that regard. It took me a bit longer to get that. I removed the old wires and I have the two new ones properly polarized. One of the problems is some of these radios, when they didn't have the plugs that were polarized, if you put it in backwards, even though the radio wasn't on, there could have been a current flowing through. And in theory, if you touched a chassis and something else metal, you could have gotten a very, very scary shock. So I always take some of these older plugs and put them with a properly polarized. And besides making sure you have a new polarized plug, you have to make sure that you're putting the proper plug end into the proper polarized area on the switch. So the switch is considered hot over here, and most of the newer cords, plugs that you get, I don't know if you can tell here, but this is smooth, and the smooth always goes to the hot, and then the ridged, you can see the ridge there, hopefully you can, that would go to the neutral, that would go to the tube over here. I'm not going to hook those up yet. I'm still just looking at it before I do that, and I like to save that for last anyway, just in case no power going through the radio at all, as a safety feature. So I looked up on the internet and I got a couple of schematics for this radio. As we showed it before, it was really very simple. There's only 1, 2, 3 capacitors, 3 wax capacitors or paper capacitors I have to replace, and there's 1 electrolytic capacitor that has a 2-parter. This here, let's see if I can turn the radio a little. In these radios since the 1950s, that's a combination. It has multiple capacitors built into it. They tend to be very stable, so normally you don't replace those. I don't know if you could replace them. If you needed to, you'd probably have to just run individual capacitors throughout. I also checked a couple of the resistors and they were fine, although I didn't do all of them. So first we'll replace the 3 capacitors. What else did I do? I also did a real quick tube check. I didn't want to take out the tube tester because these tend to be newer tubes and they're usually fine. So I just want to do a quick test to see if the filament is working. And this is a cute little gadget I got off of eBay, $10. What it does is it tells you if the filaments are out. So when the light's on here, hopefully you can see it in the camera, it's glowing orange. I just simply put a 7-pin tube in here, and the light has gone out, which means the filament is fine. Doesn't mean the tube is fine. There could be gassy, could be other issues within it, but you should be able to get power flowing through all the different tubes to properly power them up. And I did this for all 5 of the tubes I have. On, off, it's on, off, on, off, and finally on, off. So that takes care of that. What I also like to do is straighten the pins. This is a cute little gadget. It's a pin tester. Normally you need these for the miniature tubes. The older tubes with the 8-pin octals, they're very thick, so they don't bend as much, but these are very cheap, is a better way of putting it. So all you do is you put it in the proper one with the holes, and you can see if it's crooked like this or like this, you can just bend it a little, the pins. In this case, there's only one tube that was like that. So now I'm going to replace the 3 paper capacitors and the electrolytic capacitor. I will keep the video running. If you're bored, you can always fast forward. So I'm going to start with this one. This is a 0.02 microfarads. And I like to pay attention to which way the outside foil is on a capacitor, which was this way. This little black line is called the outside foil, and apparently it has to do with the way the power flows, and if it goes one way direction, it gives you a little extra protection so you're not getting interference. I truly don't know how accurate that is. I've read a lot of things that it's good, some it's real, others not real. But it is what it is. So I'm just going to replace these two. Let me get a .02. I don't have a .02, but I do have a .022. And these are good quality capacitors. So generally, you know the way it's written with their wording. Left to right, the paper foil. The foil would be on the left side, so that's how I'm going to install it. Big difference in sizes nowadays. So this had some protection on it with these little things, so I'm going to keep those on. I'll just cut them a little shorter. So I can put them back on. This really almost needs no leads. It's very small. Where's my... Okay. So I just J-hook them together. So make J-hooks on this first. And I do J-hooks on the other side. And I apologize if I'm not doing everything in focus. I'm sorry, in the camera, because I have it kind of zoomed out. Let me see if I can. That'll make it a little easier to see. When I do this, I also like to keep the writing on top, so anybody who has to work on the radio in the future is able to see what the values are. They don't have to fool around with this. A little harder with the shorter leads, that's for sure. Okay, there we go. Now we'll just solder that one up. Good. Let's get the other side. It's interesting with the solder that I'm using now. This solder is Capacitor, which is supposedly supposed to be a very good brand. I had old Radio Shack solder from years and years ago, and it still worked, but I didn't realize how much better this solder is until I started using this a few weeks ago, so I'll only buy this in the future. Alright, so that first one's done. That was the .02. Now we'll move on to the .05 here. And actually, to get to a little better, I'm going to remove this. So I'll take my actually this is, I need to pay attention on this too, because they're different, usually have different colors on these, and it looks like maybe this has been replaced and I use both red wires. So I have to make sure I use the right values. This one's expecting a 30 and a 50. I replace it with a 30 and a 47 because those are the numbers that they use now. As long as you're close, you're going to be fine with those. We'll cut off the negative side. And how is this attached down here? Let's see if I can get in here and just, I could rock it back and forth. There we go. Voila. So they had a 50 and a 50 here. That's why, so they replaced it with the wrong values, at least the wrong values that were on the schematic. I do have to question it because these are the original wax capacitors and they're Cornell Dubner, and this one is Cornell Dubner also. So I'm wondering if, let me check another schematic. I have two schematics from different people, different places. It's possible that they change it in various revisions, but I'll look at that in a moment. Get this out of the way here. And this is the one I wanted to replace. Oh dear. Look at that. Now I know why it looks like it was burnt down there. Alright, the pin just broke off this. And that is not a good thing. One pin is not used, so I think that's okay, but I have to see if I can glue this back down. It's going to be worth a try, because I'm not going to start trying to replace tube sockets. That's not touching anything. Yeah, I think I should be good if I just glue it down. But as you can see, this whole thing just broke. What causes that to break? Usually heat. If too much heat's being applied, these things break very easy, especially these older ones that are made of this kind of fiberboard material. I think I have no one to blame but myself, because probably when I was removing the old wire here, the old power cord, there's a good chance that I had it sitting too long, and I'm the one who caused that to become fragile. That said, this whole thing down here doesn't look very good either. So, alright, so I will get some glue and glue that down, and we'll see how we do, and I'll come back to you. I'll be back. Okay, the moment of truth. I forgot to restart the camera, but I have the tubes back in. What I also did is put a little 3-in-1 here. See the ball bearings in there? That'll make it flow a little smoother. I put a little, some people use WD-40, I use something called Deoxit for the on-off switch, volume control. I did put the 3 capacitors in there, placing a wet, and also I replaced this huge thing with this right here. It's held down by tape. It's not going, double-sided tape. It's not going anywhere. It's so light. And I made sure that indeed it did require a 50 on one of them rather than just a 50 they put on both. It was a 50 and a 30. I replaced the power cord. I have that all back together. I put a new grommet here to make sure it's good. And I did forget one thing. I like to use a zip tie to keep this together and make sure people can pull on it. Hang on one sec. Alright, I have my zip tie here. So I'll push this in a little. Get this through here. And we're almost at the moment of truth. Okay, so what this will do, it really gives stability. So if people are pulling on the cord, which they shouldn't anyway, but this is just extra safe. Snip off the extra, and I can now take off this speaker protection. Ooh, don't stick to that. Okay. Good. It is the moment of truth. I also cleaned, you could say, cleaned the chassis, wiped it off a little, and I wasn't trying to get it perfect. It's really not worth anything. So I don't accidentally shock myself, I will put the switches back on, the on-off switch, and the dial. Okay. So what I have set up here is I have it going from a little hard to see here with the camera on a tripod, but basically I'm going from a protector, which is used for it's an isolation transformer, and then I go to this way here to a variac, and I have my variac down off, so isolation transformer on, variac on, but at 0 power. I'm going to turn the radio on, and now I'll start to go up, and usually I can't see anything on my variac until I get up to about 40 volts. So I'm at 40 volts. I'm going to turn the light off just to see if I start to see tubes light up. If I don't see tubes light up, then we have a problem. Okay, I'm going to go up to 60 volts. I'm starting to see tubes light up. I don't know if you can see it on the video. I'm up to 90 volts. I hear sound. You see some of the tubes light up in the video. Turn the light back on. And I'm going to bring it up to 119 volts. Now I have so many electronics going on here, so I'm not really expecting anything. Volume is very low. What I'm going to do is I have an AM transmitter. I'm going to hook it up to Alexa just to see if I can pick up something. Alexa, play music by the Beatles. I'm not picking up anything. I hear a hum, so I know it's not the speaker. Try one more thing, just in case the antenna's bad. I'm going to bypass the antenna and go right to Okay, nothing. Alexa, off. Could be one of many things. So what I'm going to try first is the simplest, which is to test the tubes. You saw that I tested for the filament was fine, but now I'm going to actually just to test to make sure they're fine. So there's no reason to see that. Tube testing is such a pain. Not a pain. It's necessary, evil, but it's boring to watch. So I'll test them and come back. I am back about 3 minutes later than I was earlier. I decided to, before test the tubes, to see about that socket that I accidentally broke, to see if something was wrong with that. It turns out it was. I did glue it back in. If you recall, it was a pin broke off that was not used, so I glued it back in, but I was not careful, and it was actually touching another wire, causing a short circuit. That's why we weren't getting any kind of reception. With that said, let's try it again. And this is, for me, it's not a big surprise because I tested it already, but pretend it's the first time. Let's play something a little different. Alexa, let's play Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Let the radio come up.
Escape from reality. Open your eyes.
I have it on a very low volume, so it's good. All right, and there we are. I'm going to let it run for about 8 hours. Let me lower it so you can hear me. I'm going to let it run for about 8 hours, and then I'll give it an alignment, although it sounds pretty good already. And then the next video we'll see, hopefully, will be of the cabinet results that we restored earlier, and then I have that one piece of cabinet left to do. I plan on painting it. It comes in this blue color, was the original factory blue. I don't like really the blue color. Not that I don't like the blue color, I don't like that shade of blue. So I may paint it something else. As I mentioned, I've done another one like this before, and I painted it yellow and black, and I thought it came out really good. I'll provide a picture of that also in the video. So until we meet again, I'll be back.